Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Narjeet Kaur. I am an administrator working at GHPS, that is Guru Harkishan Public School, Kalkaji, New Delhi, in India. And also, I am a Google certified trainer and innovator, educator, level 1 and 2, and also the leader for GEG Punjab and Amritsar. And this session that we're going to discuss and talk about has really been very close to my heart because there is nothing in the classroom if there is no curiosity going on, right? That eagerness to learn, that eagerness to remain curious. I feel that it always pays off. So today in this session, we are going to go into the deeper study of what is inquiry based learning and how can that enhance the teaching learning of the classroom. So every year I believe, and every educator is going to, I'm sure, agree with me here, more than 5 million children, those who enter kindergarten, they are only armed with one word, and which is why. I mean, they're cute. Continuously, they're asking questions, and that seems to be an unending loop at times, right? I mean, whys and hows and wheres and all sorts of questions they're asking. And on the other side, the parents, the caretakers, teachers, they actually do their best to come up with the answers to manage this. Curiosity of the kids, this inquisition, but there is no allaying it. Behind one question there is another, then another, and another, and another. This seems like a very painful activity to think about as adults, as teachers, as educators. At times it does. But this process is very, very important for the children. Their brains are busily actually creating pathways. They are trying to understand actually how things work. They are learning to learn. They are learning how to learn. They are learning what to learn. And this is really, really important in the classroom. So, the early childhood researchers say that we have a very curious scientific nature from the very beginning of our lives, very, very curious nature. And I read a recent study also someplace that claimed that toddlers and the preschoolers, they behave like scientists. They are observant and they are curious, and they soak in all the information that is available in the world. At least they try to do that. Like little experiments that they light up when there are unpredictable things happening in the class, and they are ready to decipher the casual relationships, small events, everything that is happening around them in their surroundings. They're really ready to soak it all. But then something happens when the children grow older. Their this curious nature of theirs fail. It keeps on fading, and those why questions that we are always targeting on, they grow silent. Students no longer feel that it is okay, that they no longer feel that it is absolutely all right um, to fail, or to ask questions. They fail to remember their inner scientists. They don't remember what it is like to ask questions. They are not curious enough. They're not even interested enough to be asking those questions in the class. And I really lament this act of forgetting of theirs. All the children are artists, as Picasso says, to which I want to add that as adults, this this artistic nature of the children fade. They have to remain that scientist. The trick is to remain that scientist throughout their lives, but many a times that fades. And today the need of curious people has heightened in this world all the more. We are at a critical time in our world where there are so many global issues which needs to be resolved, which needs the 21st century skills and all. So to make this a better world, our society actually needs people to ask questions. We need the kind of children who are going to seek solutions, sort out the problem, trying to locate the answer, so on and so forth, right? As such, it's time to reconnect with curiosity again and nurture the same in our children, right? So the children who are asking questions are going to become the adults who know how to ask questions. So if we are going to give wings to that curiosity when the children are younger, definitely they are going to grow into the world of adults where they know how to ask questions, how to answer, and which questions to ask. That problem solving ability has to have a very definite a kind of gene in their development, right? So why it is important to nurture that curiosity? I mean, it's time to make a recommitment to our curiosity. Few acts, we just takes a few acts to do that. Children will still stay curious and remain focused if they feel that their curiosity is valued, right? So if we go to the class as teachers and we sit there and we just teach what is there in the text, though a huge shout out to all the teaching fraternity who are doing their best to bring out the best in the children. Huge acknowledgement to all the teachers here, to educators here. But if we teachers, we go into the class and we are not even curious about what the lesson is about, what we are going to teach, they are going to learn, what activities will make them engaged in the class and all, then I mean, then that teaching learning does not have any value for me. For me, that becomes absolutely null and void, a very hollow situation where there is nothing going on. The children are taught that you have to learn this, and the children learn it because they have to do it for the exams. At least in Indian education scenario, we can say that, because the exams and the marks and the grades are the end result of the teaching learning that is happening in the class. But then as parents, as caretakers, um, we have to have that kind of curiosity. I agree that sometimes teachers do not have that kind of energy in the classroom. They have to do lots and lots and lots of stuff that is going on. They do not have the, sometimes if again I talk about Indian schools and I talk about Indian scenarios, I don't know about others, but we might not have that kind of freedom also sometimes to pursue everything that we want to, or to conduct the class in the manner in which we want. But that does not mean that we cannot work around that situation. It doesn't mean that we do not have means and resources to make the classroom more curious, to make the children more energetic. And sometimes we do not have the energy also to do so, as I said earlier also. But then we cannot stop trying, we cannot do that. We might not have the time, we might not have the energy, but still we need to instill that in our kids, right? So instead of asking what did you learn today, we the teachers can try asking what good questions did you ask today. This small change indicates that learning is important. You have to keep the inner scientist's flame aglow when we're talking about curiosity, right? So stay hungry and stay curious, we must have heard about it also. So some children, they have already they have already understood, and they understand that curiosity is important. They have already inherited that mindset, right? Like for example, say Clara Ma, she named her she's a sixth grader who named the Mars rover Curiosity, right? She gets it, she knows it. We are all explorers, and we come from a long lineage of people who asked, what's that, what's over there, what can we find if we go in here? And despite the risks and the failures that they have failed and that they have gone through, they have just pushed through, they have discovered, they have created. Hats off to those people. And we have to make our children walk on those tread on those roads which might be difficult to walk on, but then it is very, very necessary. So for those adults who stay tuned to their curious minds, curious nature, they are the one that show that curiosity provides openness and space for creativity. A prime example of that is Steve Jobs, Apple's creative genius. He said that the whole Earth catalog's motto, which he read in 1970s, resonated with him and became his personal mantra, as he always say. That is why I said earlier, stay hungry, stay foolish. Something that he swore by. Being hungry for knowledge is something that is going to make you have a spirit which is required in the 21st century, which is a spirit of curiosity, spirit of creativity. Only then we are able to make citizens, or make children who can look into the global issues, solutions for the global issues. Because you have to come asking questions and search tirelessly for the answers to those questions. And this is one habit that we really, really need to kindle in our children. I also feel that asking questions, they always asking questions, how might I say, make you better human beings, right? It is a part of our evolution. So when we remain curious, when we remain open, we can mitigate that kind of a fear. Fear makes us powerless, right? Fear makes us powerless, but if we are curious, if we are honest enough, and if we are brave enough to look for answers, to seek solutions, that power is returned to us. Fear might cast a shadow, but curiosity pushes that kind of darkness away. So to make space, we have to, as educators, we really have to make space for asking questions. um, Sometimes it becomes very annoying in the classroom when children ask questions, even if they are silly questions. It is very, very important, because we are talking about skill here. We are not talking about which question we have to filter as important or unimportant, not important, or something that is not related to our subject and subject matter and things and so on and so forth. But what is important here is the skill of development. You do not have to snub the child saying that the question is not related to the subject. Why are you digressing and deviating, and why don't you come back to the lesson that we are no, that is not the solution. That is not the solution at all. So it is the skill, however silly the question might appear. Asking question is something that we are trying to instill in the child. So asking questions or inquiry based learning, or what we're talking about today, that is not a child's play. So it is a pathway to growth, to success, and to greatness, I believe, right? So what is inquiry based learning? It always asks them to stay entertained and all. So let's come to the basics of the session for today, which is inquiry based learning. So it is more about asking a student about what she wants to know, what she wants to create, what she wants. It is triggering curiosity in the children, right? It is their curiosity which is far more, and their curiosity, you will see that it might get into far more complex goals than just information delivery. But then we are not going to be intimidated by the complexity of the entire process, because it is the process. If the teachers get it, despite its complexity, you have to make it easy on yourself also, because uh, and you can do that, and you can do that, teachers can do that, because here they transfer more responsibility to the students, right? Because releasing authority is going to engage the children, right? If you put more responsibility on the children, you just have to try and see they are going to come back with huge great answers. And the teachers, one another thing I would like to share here, one another thing, a small practice that I do in my school, and that is, when we are there in the class, I always ask my teachers to go into the class and to discuss things. Whatever they are discussing, whatever they are making, whatever process they are into, they should always ask the children to create questions and find answers. If they are creating, even if it is a class 1 or 2 or 3 who are beginning to read and beginning to form sentences, even if they are ready to ask questions in the class, frame questions. So what I do is, when they come up with a fantastic question, we do what, we put it in the question paper and give the credit to the child also. So when we give credit to the child, and in the question paper which is being circulated to all the parents also, and all the other children, all the other kids in the school, the child feels are responsible, and the others also feel that they want their names maybe in next time in the question papers, and they try harder. So one problem that I see, the teachers who use inquiry based things in the class or learning in the class, they're always faced with the problem of, I don't know, chronic problem, student engagement, chronic problem. So when you ask a student something like, what do you want to know about, you're often given a shrug. I don't know, I don't care, so inquiry based learning is a front loaded, organized thing that generates excitement in students. So you will be able to combat this problem of, I don't know, or shrugs, that that begin to fire the curiosity, right? They can't wait to become the experts in answering their own questions. So it is a very unorthodox method of learning, which incorporates active participation of the students by involving them in posing questions, then bringing real life experiences to them. The basis of this method is to channelize the entire thought process. So rather than, this is what you want to do and this is what you should think about, give them a chance to what to think, and they are going to come out with engaging answers, I tell you. So that makes also the real world connections through exploration and high level questioning. um, So this is a kind of approach which I feel the students get engaged properly. All kinds of other learnings are also incorporated in that, be it experiential learning or whatever you call it. So there is so much of happening, things happening around in our world, that it is worth giving our learners a chance to discover and explore them. So what we do is, by leaving space for their lessons and for authentic, what you call curiosity, to take hold, teachers can give charge to them to enable deeper learning, putting students in charge of their learning journey, which is very, very important, right? So again, one scenario I have just discussed one scenario wherein the teacher is very terrified of the scenario, or the classroom engagement, wherein she is met with shrugs and I don't know, I don't care kind of answers. Another scenario which is very terrifying for the teacher is that she doesn't know, I mean, the key element of the class remains invisible to them, because with the which is engagement, right? And another thing, teachers, we see that children are reading, but we cannot fathom their reading process or their thinking process. We are actually equally uncertain about students who are working in the group projects. If we want to tap on the multiple intelligences here, on the benefits of multiple intelligences here, in such activities, when we are using group projects or individual projects, or pairing also for that matter, we can be sure, I mean, can we can be sure that there is something going on in the class, but can we be sure that it is they are using deductive thinking or inductive thinking, or are they just daydreaming? You cannot do that. So sadly, we cannot expect every student to learn to their fullest capacity, but we can augment definitely that learning within a classroom through this inquiry based learning. So this approach may not make learning less invisible, but it certainly makes the process self evident actually to teachers, and particularly if it is followed in a sequential order. So it is a progressive, what do you call, progressive curriculum built on the premise that involves students in seeking their own knowledge, which is the best way of understanding, I believe. So there are a few principles of learning that we follow, uh, four simple steps that inquiry based learning teaches us, and which is, first of all, the problem statement. So what is a problem statement? Now in this problem statement, first step, the teacher presents a problem for the students to solve. They're asked to deep dive and prove the problem or the theorem. And to start off, the instructors can draw a graph, maybe, or geometrical figure, or pictures, be it online on the whiteboards, right? On offline, you still have whiteboards and blackboards in the classes. You can do that. You can start asking questions related to that image, and you can ask the students to begin seeking problems, or pardon me, solutions to those problems. So this is easily replicated, as I said, in the online setup also. So the students are developing questions that they're hungry to answer. So you have to develop a problem statements. You have to give them a problem. Just give them something. They are the ones who are going to develop a problem statement that requires them to pitch their questions using a very constructed response, further inquiry, and citation, I believe. Then the second step is followed by an investigative thing, gathering of information related to the question, which we got data collection, right, which is very, very important. The students may be allowed to use appropriate applications, web browsers, libraries, wherever they can explore the content to look for the answers. Research the topic, and do not make them haywire use doing that. You have to give them a topic, and you can use the class time also in making giving them time to research, so that you know that the children are genuinely into research. They haven't borrowed the things from their parents or their peers or somebody and brought it in the class too. It is very, very crucial to have this to be a classroom activity, so that the students have the access to the head researcher in the room, which is you, of course, the educators. So you aren't going to do the work for them, but you're going to guide them, and you have to give them certain model methods of researching reliably also. So, continuing the third step with the discussion of finding and analysis. So, once the students have investigated, they must create reports, the answers, or apply problems to the to show the conclusions that they have arrived at. This, I believe, should be done in front of the whole class. The instructor can schedule a live class where they can present the proof online, have the students present what they have learned, which is very, very, very important, because students should create and present a culminating artifact. So uh, when I have any students prepare what they have or present what they have learned, I use a rubric with what are we going to teach. After all, how many, we all might know the content, children also same problem, they might know the content, but communication of that content is again very, very important. So we have to make them present their own content. We are not going to be there, we are only going to be there as guiding force, right? So they can prepare a slide deck, they can use Google website. I'm so sorry, I always talk about Google since I am into it. So they can do anything with that. You can a website, or slideshows using slides, whatever they want. And the last step that we are talking about here is a very important, and the culmination of the entire process, which we call is reflection, implications, conclusion. So once the presentation of proofs is over, instructions or instructors or educators, they may hold a discussion meeting to have the students share their reflections, share their learning through the entire journey of solving that problem. you know you can ask the students to reflect, even if it is online or offline, it's not a problem. But you have to ask the student to reflect on the process is important, right? Reflection here is the key. It is just not about asking them to think back on their opinion, it's about reflecting. It's about metacognition, as I call, thinking about thinking. So they have thought, they did think about some of the things when they were searching, but thinking again about that thought process is very important. See, you have to have the students to focus on how they learn in addition to what they learn. So this house is very, very important, right? So and then we move into a small template. I'm going to present a small template to you stepwise, wherein how this inquiry based learning can be projected and taken up in the class, how this inquiry based learning can be taken up in the class. And with this template, it becomes all the more easier, I must say, for the teachers to take up inquiry based learning, right? So here it's how to apply the components of inquiry based learning, how to do that. So there is a lot of room for flexibility within the inquiry based structure. You can you can start off by applying anything. Approach is important. Any lesson you can take. For example, you can imagine a world history class using COVID-19 pandemic as a touchstone to study and investigate the pandemics of the past also. So compare them with that. So excuse me, it is a kind of group inquiry. The teacher introduces the events and the histories of, say, 1918 Spanish influenza as a short lecture. Reading assignments are another way of introducing. So the students are going to split up in the small groups to discuss how this pandemic is similar to the current one, how 1918 was similar to the current one. The teacher encourages them to develop questions about ways people have reacted differently, and the same what people are doing today. So you have to give them something in samples. The sample questions maybe how well the society has understood the plague and what caused it. Did people resist quarantine measures, and were there any political implications of that? So teachers should encourage the brainstorming questions. To They must encourage the children to branch out, to think deeper, right? Something which interests them, something that touches on the topic, something that excites them actually. So that is presentation of a problem, very thought provoking questions which empowers them to investigate using resources, available resources we are going to talk about next, right? Then they can talk about they can talk about investigation of data. Now driving questions with that, it is very, very important to give them vocabulary also. Give them objectives, give them driving questions, and give them a vocabulary that they have to use these words. Especially they have to use comparison, um, older, newer. This is just an examples if I talk about here. So they have to use this vocabulary to, because this should not go haywire, right? The entire process should not go haywire. They should be with, you should give them a you should give them a world to think about, but in that world there should be a window, that beyond this window the thought process is going to go waste. So focus all your energies and focus all your strengths to in for the perception inside this vocabulary window. So for me, that is also very important. Many people do not consider this vocabulary to be a part of inquiry based in learning, but for me this is very very important, right? So the vocabulary that the students can use, what they learn to answer the initial questions that you presented. The teacher should encourage the students to use their research to support their claims, right? Each group can present their findings to the class and invite questions, right? And teacher should always be there to guide, to discuss, to correct errors, to present additional questions, and whatever resources they are doing. Another example I will take here is of decomposition demonstrations. So most students understand that when we leave food out on the counter for a few days, it is going to grow brown, slimy, and yucky, and bad and smelly. But many a times we do not know, students do not know about why that actually happens. So this is inquiry based learning activity that will give students an opportunity to explore how the decomposition of organic matter is affected by factors such as temperature, humidity, storage, type of food. So here again, you are going to give them some basic questions, some, like I said, vocabulary, right? So here the vocabulary can be temperature, humidity, storage, time, and type of food. So they are going to give all their focus on basing their objectives and basing their findings within a window of these, and which is more important, they shouldn't go haywire, right? And this is important that every level should have that kind of a vocabulary. We are talking about maybe a class, grade 6 or grade 7. They do not have to talk about huge scientific discoveries and everything. Give them vocabulary that these are the things that you're going to include in your study, which is temperature, humidity, storage, time, type of food. And then you teach your students the science behind decomposition first, right? Allow students to explore for themselves later, because provide them with variety of fruits and vegetables, right? Have students experiment with leaving food whole, cutting into pieces, taking skin off, variety of different conditions. So you put an apple one place, study that. Cut apple into pieces, study that on the counter. Peel the apple whole, only peel, don't cut, study that. Peel and cut and study that. And this is going to bring out observations along with the theory regarding which factors affect most of the rate of decomposition and why, right? One other example, leftover pencils, for example. You can keep a track of can we keep a track of repurposing our class pencils. So examples like serve two functions, example like these folks serve two functions. First, they encourage problem solving, right? Because this is a real world issue. Secondly, they encourage students to give creative to be creative, to find ways of repurposing objects that are either broken or unusable or too short. So there is a lot of room for curiosity and creativity. Students who are design oriented, design thinking again what comes handy here. Those who are design oriented are going to enjoy creating something to keep track of pencils and store them neatly. And then there are students who enjoy the process of problem solving. They are going to take pride in developing a plan to keep track of pencils so that the waste is minimized. So it is important to remind students that this kind of inquiry uh, should seek to address a problem. In this case, the problem is pencils disappearing with no understanding of where they are going, why they are disappearing, or how to fix it. So you have to go to the root of the problem. Students may need to do some research, conduct a survey, and things like that are going to be very, very beneficial here. And for assessment, I'll come to a bit in the assessment. Why? We'll come to that. And so this is the kind of investigation that we can do, inquiring and make connections. As I said, I'm just going to go through ones. Vocabulary is very important. These are the examples that show investigation of data collection. You can have books, you can have discoveries, you can have possible experiences. Organize information learning analysis is very very important. You can create a Venn diagram, how you are going to present the statistics, be it a scroll or a video or a team poster, whatever. And then conclusion, as I said, this is very important. You have to turn, for example, if it is a castle or something that we are doing, um, So what measures we are taking, what the things we are doing, that is also very very important. For example, our problem statement was how the things were different in medieval times compared to the present, right? And they have to use vocabulary like meet, drawbit, charity, owner, knight, um, building, food, entertainment, celebrations, right? Then the step two is data collection, that is to investigate. They can have castles, they can have flip chart, they can have books, they have music, they have games, they have food, they have models, they have investigations. And this is how they are going to present their problems. They are going to come together and organize a documentation. From the investigation, they can create a graphic organizer via mind map, flowchart, graph, anchor, poster, video, audio, whatever they want. And conclusions, to present their project to the classrooms. They can turn it into a castle also if you want, right? There can be an entrance, there can be a exit, there can be a room illuminated in the form of a castle. Howsoever they want to present it, it's up to them. And the next thing we come to is how to apply the components of inquiry based learning. And that is what we just did. And now we are going to come to types of the student inquiry. There are four forms. First is confirmation. Here learners are given a question as well a method to which the end result is already known. So the goal is to confirm the results, right? Because this enables the learners to reinforce already established ideas and to practice their investigative skills. The second that we have is controlled inquiry. In the controlled inquiry, what happens is specific goals are given. For example, you are limiting the students in some way, but also fostering the imaginative critical thinking and the problem solving things in that. So that is very very important. The structured inquiry is very important, in which the teacher can choose the topics, and identify the resources also, and the students are going to answer the questions, right? So their learners are given the questions and the methods of achieving, but the goal is to provide an explanation that is already supported by the evidence which is gathered during and through the investigative process. Then there is guided learning, which is where the learners are given only a question. So the main goal of that is to design method of investigation and then test the question itself. This is not typically as structured as the previous mentioned ones forms, but it lets students gather in groups to design investigation methods and then reinforce that problem solving skills, right? And then the last one, and my favorite, is open inquiry, where the learners are given their own questions to design investigative methods, carry out inquiry. They must present but their results at the end, which is very important. So the students are allowed, you have to allow student to post the original question. They can choose any topic of their liking. You, without any reference to the prescribed outcome, you can give them anything to do, and they have to take the ownership of what they are going to learn and ownership of what they are going to do, right? So this is the template in which I work, and this is the form of inquiry which I the types of student inquiries. You can apply any of them. And assessment, again, assessment is very 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 important. So whether you are using inquiry based as a part of your homeschooling, which is not very popular in India, or in the classroom, learning how to evaluate and grade this requires a shift in a way grading is usually conducted. Test based evaluations and standards simply no longer imply. So with inquiry based learning, the process and journey is just as important, if not more, than the outcome. This provides a richness to the educational experience, but also a challenge for educators who rely on tests and evaluation. So, when evaluating students' understanding and learning, look for the key signs for assessments. Look for the key signs like appropriate use of vocabulary. This is my personal. As I said, most of the people do not include vocabulary in the process of uh, evaluation or template, but I do that. So appropriate use of vocabulary should be there. Exchange of ideas should be effective. Exchange of ideas should be clear. Their ability to problem solving or presenting their topic should be supported by evaluation, explanation, insight, and evidence. So you have to consider building a portfolio to demonstrate the knowledge and understanding, and this becomes an incredible tool for the students to how much to see for themselves also how much they have accomplished. So this is how the evaluation goes, and this is how the evaluation assessment we must look into for the inquiry based learning. So this is one method. Also, there are so many benefits that we have been talking about benefits throughout this session. The role of the teachers also, how to felicitate the classroom, how to enable them to take responsibility, how to make them ready to ask key questions like hows, whys, what's, with evidence, which is very important. Remember, with evidence, they shouldn't be talking haplessly whatever they want to think about, just it comes first thing to their mind, and no, they have must have evidence to what they are talking, right? They must increase their responsibility on that. And the role of the students, they have their invitation. It is kind of an invitation to learn. They must willingly engage, right? They must carry out the plan, all the activities that the teacher is giving them. Template I have already shared, so that template, if you stick to that template, or if you have any other engaging template for yourself, it is going to be a huge process for you to have. It is going to be a huge process for the children to go through, a huge process for the children to be engaged with, right? So that is what I was talking about. Um, so yeah, inquiry based learning, as I said, is a very very influential way, and there it is very different from the traditional classroom also. Unfortunately, our traditional education system has worked in a way that discourages the natural process of inquiry. The students become less prone to asking questions as they move through the from one grade to another through the grade levels, right? In traditional schools, the students are learning to ask too many questions instead to listen and repeat the expected answers, which is the most discouraging form of their traditional system, right? Some of the discouragement of our natural inquiry process may come from lack of understanding about the deeper nature of inquiry based learning as well. So there is even a tendency to view it as a fluff learning. Effective inquiry is more than just asking questions. We have to do that. A complex process involves when individuals attempt to convert information and data into useful knowledge, right? So, useful application of inquiry based learning involves several factors: a context for questions, a framework for answers, framework for questions, focus for questions, and different levels of questions also. So, well designed inquiry learning process, it produces knowledge formation that can be widely applied. Memorizing facts and information is not education, not, at least not in today's world. It is not an important skill here. Asking question is is a skill which we have to make students understand, because that gives us a sense of the mass of data, right? So educators must understand that the schools need to go beyond data and information accumulation and move towards a generation of children who can use and apply knowledge, a process which is supported by inquiry based learning, right? In our past, our country's success depended on the supply of natural resources only, and today depends upon a workforce, children who can work smarter, right? So, through the process of this inquiry, individuals construct much of their understanding of the natural and human design worlds. It implies the need to want to know. It is not much seeking the right answer, because often there is no right answer to everything. You cannot have a right answer to everything. But then seeking that wrong answer is also important. Seeking appropriate resolution, solution to questions, to issues, to conflicts is very important. So, for educators, the inquiry implies the emphasis on the development of those inquiry based skills and nurturing of that attitude or the habit of mind that is going to enable our individuals or our children to continue the quest for knowledge throughout life, right? The content of disciplines is very important, but not as a means to an end, not an end in itself, right? The knowledge base for discipline is constantly expanding and it is changing. But for modern education, the skill and ability to continue learning, to continue asking questions, to continue asking having an inquiry, that is something which is going to have the most important outcomes. So I hope we are all ready by the end of this session to experiment with the inquiry based learning template in our classrooms. And trust me, I have tried this, and it is one of the most brilliant forms of education that we have, one of the most brilliant forms of skills that we have, asking questions, because that is something that has given rise to the most important discoveries in the world. So thank you so much. This is Dr. Narjeet from GHPS, New Delhi, India. Thank you so much, Eric, for this platform. So thank you.